Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and this is Hangout number 69. Welcome, everyone who is here in the chat room. Oh my gosh, in spite of the upcoming holidays for many, we still have people here, although Molly says she's about to step out and do those last minute preparations. I don't have to do those because about 20 years ago, our family made a pact not to give any presents to adults or to children who are big enough to only want something that was worth $300. And so now I only shop for my granddaughter. So boy, has that made things easy. Such a relief. No, we don't get the fun of unwrapping all the stuff, but at least we don't have the stress either. So anyway, welcome everyone. Rebecca is here, Maria's here, Michaela is here. And let's see, Lisa Ann is here. Sandra is here, Aisha is here. Lisa S is here, Grandma Tat is here. Did I say Sandra already? Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, Molly, who is probably going to be missing in action, and we'll miss you, Molly. Lisa's here, Maria's here. Let's see, Erica is here, and who else is here at the moment? I think that's everybody here so far. And people usually do come in, and if you do come in, welcome. And I probably won't say hello to you until maybe you ask a question. If you would like to be in the chat room, please do click below on Patreon. That is where our wonderful community is here. I only have patron-only chat rooms during any of my live shows. And also, I've instituted something a little new. Every week now, we have a patron chat I throw up at Patreon every week just to say, hey, if you want to say something to each other, whatever. But now what I want is to include the topic that I did on the case file, usually on the weekends on Sunday, and say, here is where you can, because you're part of Patreon, ask your questions and give your comments that aren't the same as what's on YouTube. Because yes, folks, I do answer on YouTube. And you'll notice a lot of people who have, let's say, way more subscribers than I do on YouTube, they don't actually respond to anyone. And I don't actually blame them because you just get overwhelmed and you give up at some point and say, I'm just not answering anything anymore. I still try to answer things that I look at my comments and I try to run through them and try to answer some, especially interesting ones. But it gets overwhelming when you have, when you're starting out in YouTube and you have like 200 subscribers, you can answer everybody. But when you end up with 200,000, which I don't have, then you're like, okay, I'm done. So Patreon is a place where I'm going to be able to focus more on your questions and comments. You're supporting the channel, especially here. So then I'm going to look at that chat every week and see if I can answer my patrons' questions there. So that's an added bonus as opposed to commenting on YouTube, which is perfectly fine because I do like people to have conversations there. So that's good. And I may see your comment. It's just that I'm more likely to see it here at Patreon if you're part of the patron community. Okay, so anyway, let's see now. And if you're new to the channel, do subscribe to the channel. That does help support the channel. Like the video, share in your true crime groups. And somebody asked me something, and I want to point this out because I think this is how I feel about it. They said, I like to go and onto other YouTube pages and promote your channel because I think it's great. And I have a problem with that. And this is my reasoning. That is their home. And I don't know if they like my channel. And so even you go over there and say, hey, this is a great channel. That person might not appreciate the fact that you're encouraging their subscribers to go to a channel they don't particularly support. Now, if they do like me, then they probably don't care. But you don't know that. Because I've had people come to my channel and recommend channels which I am not happy with. I think they're grifter channels. And I don't want my subscribers to go there. So I try to actually remove those comments because, not because I'm only for me, but because I don't support those channels. I don't want people to think I do. If they find those channels on their own, God bless them. But I don't necessarily want to support them. So I also don't want people to go to other people's channels and put my name up there and say, oh, you should listen to Pat Brown. She's smarter than you. That's their home. Don't shit in it. You know what I mean? I may have concerns about certain channels and I've spoken up about, but I don't want my people who are here to go there. and say negative things. I think that's still their home. And if I disagree with them, I'll disagree with them here. I don't want to send out my minions. And I've had that happen to me, by the way. Somebody I did speak about on this show. This was early on, because I thought they were a grifter channel, and it bothered me tremendously what they were doing. And not only did he stalk me, but then he sent his minions after me. So, so I don't want to do that kind of thing in return. So folks, if you love my channel, go to a true crime site, which is open to every channel. It's not anybody's home. It's where people share true crime ideas on. That's fine. Share it on your Facebook page, share it on Twitter, but don't go to other people's YouTube channels and say, oh, Pat Brown, blah, blah, blah. Don't do that. Don't do that, because they may not appreciate it, and I don't think it's fair. So that's just my thoughts on that. I wanted to bring that up. Now, next thing. Jennifer is here too. Hola. Jennifer says, hola. I'm going to be in Puerto Rico in a couple of weeks, so I'll be working on my Spanish down there. Yes, I will. We'll see. No, don't be a minion. I don't want minions. I just want people who want to learn about crime and criminology. Yeah, don't want minions. Yeah, I don't want people obsessed. It's concerning. Very concerning. Don't be that way. It's an unhealthy condition. Okay. All right. Now, I was so happy this was the week I wasn't going to speak about Idaho. But now I have 3 things to say about Idaho. So I'm going to go ahead with that first, because it's so prominent in the news, and I want to clear up misconceptions and concerns, and some things that I've heard that I'm like, wow, okay. So let me start with this, and let me talk first about the car issue, because there was this, they have been looking for this white car, right? A specific white car, and there was one that was crashed in another state. It was about, I think it was 500 miles away. I think was it in Oregon? I'm going to blank here now. Where's my information here, so I don't have to look totally stupid. Some people say, but Pat, you have that problem. Oh, whoops, wrong one. Sorry. Okay. So it was a Hyundai spotted in Oregon. Oh, I was right. Unrelated to quadruple homicide. Now, this was the white Hyundai Elantra that the Moscow police have been searching for. And of course, when this crashed vehicle without a license plate was found in Oregon, people are like, that's it. The dude drove to Oregon. And it's not that far away, so I would say, it's possible. Sometimes people say something like, the guy's in Maine. I'm like, probably not. But this was actually within half a day's drive. You could do it. But here's the problem, and here's what I want people to understand about white vehicles. I can't tell you how many crimes I have researched and been involved with that involve white vehicles. It's craziness. I mean, it literally is crazy. There was one in Spotsylvania, Virginia. 2 girls, the Lisk sisters, and another girl, Sophia Silva, were abducted from right in front of their houses. It's a horrific crime, and I'm going to do that show someday. It's one of the most painful things I've ever dealt with, especially the Lisk sisters. This was a family, lovely family with just 2 girls, and the guy kidnapped both girls off the doorstep after school and brutally murdered them. And it's just one of those things you just can't fathom, just horrifying. And Sophia Silva, she was before the Lisk sisters, and they didn't realize she was connected until later. Anyway, Lisk sisters, white vehicle. Oh my God. Everybody was looking for that damn white vehicle. White vehicle, white vehicle, white vehicle. And then with the snipers, the DC snipers, they were looking for, I think was it? Now I'm blanking. I do that a lot. White truck, I think it was white truck issue or white van. And I live in DC, so I lived through the DC sniper, the whole DC sniper thing. Yeah, I was there living through that. And people were like, when they went to gas stations, because the guy, that hit a gas station. So, when people were hiding behind the cars to put the gas in, they were like squatting down on the ground because they didn't want to get shot. The DC snipers were terrified the area. And I live in the area, and I live near one of the schools where there was an attack, and it was very, very frightening. But then there was this white vehicle. Oh my God. And I remember thinking, it was at a gas station when this happened, and then people said, I saw this white vehicle fly out of I think it was a white van or a white truck, fly out of the gas station. And I'm like, well, hell, if you heard shots, what are you going to do? You're going to put your foot on the gas and you're going to get the heck out of Dodge. So the problem is white vehicles, very popular car. White trucks, very popular car. White vans, very popular vehicle. Why is this? White vans are very common in all kinds of industries. And one of the reasons that they're so common, they like to write crap on the side of the van, and it shows up better on white. So if a red vehicle like my Mazda Miata, I have a red Mazda Miata, it stands out. And there's not that many red Mazda Miatas on the road as compared to white vehicles. So the problem is when there's a crime that occurs, a horrific crime, and the police, somebody says, I saw a white vehicle, of whatever white vehicle it is, or the video sees a white vehicle. Everybody starts looking for the white vehicle. And here's where I think the Moscow police erred. I do think they err in this. This is why I believe strongly in press conferences by a very calm human being. Somebody should have come out in a press conference and said to the public, we have video of what is this? I'm sorry, I got to look. Hyundai Elantra. This is the video that we have at a certain point in time. We are looking for this vehicle because we do not know if it is or is not connected to the crime. And that's a very important thing to say, is or is not connected to the crime. But we would like to find this vehicle to see if the persons who own the vehicle, we'd like to talk to them. However, do not believe that this is the vehicle that is connected to the crime. We need tips coming in on every vehicle, not just this one. And that's where I think they made the error. Because once that video came out, pretty much everyone out there in the world thinks that this is the vehicle carrying the killer of the 4 students in Idaho. And I think that's a dangerous thing because we don't even know if the guy had left the house and gotten a vehicle. He could have walked home. We have the same problem with people walking down the street. I mean, there's a lot of activity in college towns, just normal activity. People go to food trucks. People walk around on the streets. It's like, it's what you do late at night after you've been drinking. You're hanging out, you're doing stuff, you're meeting friends. I'm 67. I go home. Darn it. I don't do those kind of things. But that's the way life changes as you get older. So as a college student, those are the things you do. I do remember back to those days. I remember hanging out with people to ridiculous hours in the morning and coming home at ridiculous hours, coming home after the sun came up. I remember talking to people on the phone for like a ton of time. That's what you do. It's a very useful thing. So somebody walks by, oh my God, that's the killer. Maybe it's just a student walking by. So I think it's important for the police to do a press conference and very clearly state things so to get people under control. They need the tips from the public, but they do not need people to go off the charts on everything that they do not understand and are jumping to conclusions. And that's the problem I had with a white vehicle, because they should have come out with a press conference and very clearly stated that. Don't let the press control your narrative, because the press is not reliable. They are not reliable, and they do telephone stuff. You know what I mean? I heard it from here, so now I'm going to say it here, and then they change. Oh, God knows. Don't trust them. That they should not be your spokesperson. Your spokesperson should be coming out in a press conference. A very, very, very short press conference. It doesn't have to be long. Short press conference. Put up a chart, even if you want to say we need to know this, and this. and then get people under control. And this is something Moscow is not doing. All right, so let me go on to the next issue about Moscow, which has been all over the place, which is this new fella. This fellow is the guy that's in charge of he's in charge. Hold on a second. Let me find the article on that. He is in charge now of the investigations, and this is what comes out on the Daily Fail. All right, Daily Mail. Okay, this guy, lead investigator in Idaho, murders his U.S. Army vet with just 2 years of police experience as desperate FBI ads agents and families grow even more impatient. His name is Brett Payne. Okay, let me tell you who Brett Payne is. All right, this is this guy here. All right, let's see. All right, he is a U.S. Army veteran who only joined law enforcement 2 years ago. All right, now let me tell you a little bit more about this guy. All right, this guy is. A second, let me find it. Okay, he served in the 82nd Airborne Division in Afghanistan. He joined the Moscow police force in 2020 and was awarded Rookie of the Year. In the police department's annual report from that year, the department praised him extensively and gushed over his performance in the police academy. Officer Brett Payne was awarded the Champs Rookie of the Year award. Officer Payne brings a great deal of experience to the Moscow Police Department because of his military service. All right. Oh, my. Okay. Let me say this. I had no problem with this guy joining the Moscow Police Department and being the Rookie of the Year, maybe the most fabulous guy ever. Maybe he did a stint in Afghanistan, which was not in investigations, which is concerning to me. Did a great job in Afghanistan. He's like an upstanding, great guy. Great guy. So he looks for a job when he returns home. And I don't know why he's in Moscow. I don't understand. I didn't get there's not real good information about why he ended up at this police department in Idaho. But okay. But he does. Let's put it this way. With defunding the police going on, it is hard to get anybody to join the police department right now. This is a fact. Anybody with some common sense, maybe this guy doesn't have any because he was willing to go to Afghanistan and risk his life. Maybe he's such one of those like, yeah, I'll run straight into the action and get killed. People don't want to join the police force anymore because not only do they have to suffer the normal risk of dealing with criminals, but now there are criminals who are out to get the police and shoot them just for the fun of it. And many of the community have followed this whole concept of the police are bad and they don't support the police. And so you get disrespected by people. So when you used to go into the police force thinking you were going to be like, you were in a sense a hero when you joined, that you were willing to risk your life for the community. Now you join and people like spit on you. So I can say that there's a lot of police that are retiring early now, or they're retiring and not extending any time. And they're telling their own families. And mind you, police used to tell their families to join the police force. This used to be kind of almost a familial thing. You often saw like 4 people in one family. The father was there, then the son was there, some cousins there, nephews are there, nieces are there, sisters are there. People joining the police force because they're a family of cops. No more. Now what they're telling their kids is don't do it. Don't do it. It's not worth the risk. Not only because they say you might get killed, but you might get shot in your cruiser just sitting there because somebody wants to take out the police. You go out to do an investigation and people disrespect you. And worse, you can get accused of committing. You're just trying to bring someone in. You're arresting someone. They immediately accuse you of something, and you end up in prison for the next 10 years of your life because they say that you violated their rights. So there's a lot of people who are like, this isn't worth it. So the police forces are decimated. It's so bad now that crime is running rampant in many cities and many counties. They can't get new people to join, and they're accepting now people who they shouldn't accept because they'll take anybody who can breathe. So you want a good police, you're not going to get them if you're anti-police because this is what you're getting now. Now, this guy, I'm not saying he's one of those that could just breathe and, is not a creep, is a creepy dude. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that they don't have a lot of choices anymore. And so they're so thrilled to get someone. And this guy comes in, and in 2 years, he's running a murder investigation. Now, let me say this. I don't quite understand why he's running a murder investigation. I don't understand how he's a detective. He should be a patrol officer. So it's a little confusing to me. But, Moscow isn't like exactly like murder capital, until now. So what happens is in a lot of these smaller police departments, they don't have necessarily highly experienced detectives, especially they don't have a homicide squad because there's no homicides, So where I live in Prince George's County, there's a big homicide squad because we have a lot of homicides and they're working 78 hours a week. It's exhausting. But in small towns, a lot of times you just don't really have it. You have what's called a detective. And then something like this happens and you go, oh, wow. And you've got nobody who has particular experience. As it is, most detectives don't go through detective school. They just spend 10 years on the force, drink with the right people, and become a detective. So, and they learn on the job. They don't go to school for detective work, profiling, crime scene analysis. Once in a while, they get to go to some seminars. But generally speaking, especially in small towns, you just become a detective. So I don't know how this guy got into the role he's in, but in a way, I really feel sorry for him because he may be the greatest guy ever. But let me tell you, he's going to be the fall guy for when if this thing goes south and becomes a cold case. Now, has he done anything wrong? Not that I know of. Is he skilled at running a whole big operation like this? I don't know what he did in Afghanistan. He's not a detective. But then again, say a lot of people become detectives, aren't detectives either. So is he just really good at managing? Maybe. Luckily, they've been willing to accept help, which a lot of departments are not willing to accept any help. So the FBI has been there in hordes, which is very unusual. So I give them credit. They brought in people saying, hey, we don't know what the hell to do with this mess. And they brought in people, and this guy may be managing, but not necessarily determining, like he's not doing crime scene analysis. He's just managing the team. So I'm not anti this fellow. It's sad that they don't have anybody at a high level detective position to run the team. That's concerning, just because when you understand crime better, when you've worked a lot of cases, you know better directions to go. And when you have FBI guys helping you, have a better clue of whether they're helping you in the right direction or just muddling everything up. So I personally think experience does pay off. And I would like to see every police department have a highly experienced detective with crime scene analysis experience, et cetera, et cetera. But reality is here, and that doesn't always happen. So I'm not anti this guy, but I also think that the simple fact that he doesn't have the experience, has only been on the force 2 years, is going to bite Moscow Police Department in the ass if they don't solve this crime. And it's going to bite him in the ass. And it's just kind of sad because I can't blame Moscow. They haven't had this kind of thing, and neither has this guy. So, they're like out of their depth in all of this, and it's not their fault. I mean, this is what happens in small towns when crap happens they've never seen before. They're like, oh, what do you do? That's why you do get experts in. But I think their management, as far as reaching out to the public, has been poor. And I say this in many, many cases. I said this in Delphi too. I didn't like the way they should have done better press conferences in a calm way that gives people confidence, rather than letting the media spin things or coming out all freaking emotional, and crying on camera. Not a good thing. So I think you need to be very professional to give people confidence that things are going as they should. Because I don't know that they're not going as they should. Before I go on to my next issue with what I've heard about Idaho, I'll check on your comments here. Let's see. Yes, Michaela, Moscow police have, in my opinion, have been saying things in a haphazard manner. It's been all over the map, and it's just not good. Don't say anything until you do a press conference. That's my number one opinion. Don't do anything until you do a press conference. Don't have an emotional person do the press conference. Have a spokesperson. have it put in just a list of what you want to say. Put it on a thing next to you, and a bill, on a board next to you, and say number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. I've been saying this for, I don't know, decades now, and nobody's been taking me up on the concept, but I just don't believe this is where you show emotion. I don't believe it's where you just go all over the place. You don't let the media control things. You come out and you do a very short press conference with bullet points. Also, the police group, I don't know what that means, but okay. Could this junior officer take in the lead because a more senior officer didn't want it? It's an interesting point, Allison. That is a clever question. I don't have an answer, but it's like, I'm not going to go down with this. Let's have him do it. Possible. I don't know who those other people are. This is what gets very murky. I don't know actually who's running the investigation, how many detectives are on it. Are there any detectives at all? It's all murky behind the scenes. I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised that somebody want to pawn this one off. Allison, having the military experience, he's seen leadership and control. This is true. So we'll at least be able to display control. In theory, but we just heard about the guy. So where has it been for all this time? I don't know. And I don't know what his position was in the military. I don't know. And neither does anybody else, which is why it becomes that questionable crap again that we just don't know. Aunt Dini says, Pat, do you think they released information about the white car to keep the online sleuths busy? No, I don't. I think they really want to know about this stupid white car because it could be the vehicle the killer used leaving the scene. It could be. And they are desperate for leads. Desperate. I'm going to guess, well, we don't have the DNA results in. That's the problem. Do they have DNA results? Do they have any DNA of anyone that they can think did it? In other words, not touch DNA from the furniture, which, it's a party house, God knows they got 50 different people touch DNA everywhere. But do they have blood from the killer? Do they have anything from the killer that is saliva, something? Because he didn't supposedly have sexual assaults on them, so semen is probably not there. Do they have anything that would link that DNA to a killer? If that guy wore gloves, and a lot of people are saying, oh my God, it's got to be DNA from the killer. No, there doesn't. If he wore gloves at the scene and had a ski mask on or whatever the heck he did, there may be no saliva and no blood, no nothing. No, nothing at all. And therefore, they have got nothing. Now they got this car. They're like, please, let this be the killer's car. Please. No, I think they want all the tips they can get that are useful. Now, the problem is, along with the useful tips, you get a whole bunch of garbage because online sleuths like to jump on everything. And, oh my God, this guy, it's this guy, it's this guy. And that just confuses them and overwhelms them. So they want to know if this car has anything to do with the crime. They're hoping like heck it does, because they don't have, I don't think, a lot to go on at this point. Apparently no CCTV around the house. I mean, somebody entered that house and somebody left that house and they've got nothing. And apparently, even in the neighborhood, I don't know, what is the CCTV showing? Is there anyone they're seeing on the CCTVs leaving that house? Or even if they're not seeing leaving the house, wandering around the neighborhood, past people's, cameras, getting into a car or not getting into a car, just walking into another house. I don't know what they've got. It's shocking in the sense that with today's all the Ring cameras and all the things we've got on people's, in houses, security cameras, that there's nothing that we know of that they seen the actual killer at least walking someplace to a vehicle or to a house or out of the neighborhood. Nothing. Very frustrating. Let's see. It's just, they're collecting evidence. They're going to be collecting evidence till the hill, for a long time. They're desperately trying to find something. And of course, it takes time for that stuff to come back also from the labs and everything. So we can cross our fingers and hope there's actually going to be some DNA of some sort or some other evidence, fiber evidence, anything. At this point, They don't seem to have a whole lot. So it's very sad. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the next thing that really set me off. Okay, so I do watch a couple other channels occasionally just to see. Somebody had recommended this one. I said, oh, this is great. I'm not going to say the channel. They're talking about the Idaho murders, and they got these great experts on there, psychologists and profilers, blah blah blah, and they're saying these things about the guy who committed the crime. And I've heard a couple of these things before, but it drives me nuts. Let's get into the psychology of the killer, the mind of the killer. Okay. People think that profilers can get into the mind of the killer. While we might understand the mind of a killer, we don't get into the mind of the killer unless we have psychiatric problems. We don't do that. Some of them do. They have psychiatric problems. We examine the behavior of the killers. That's entirely different. We will never absolutely know what's in the mind of anyone. People say this all the time about, other situations. Oh, we don't know the mind of what happened to that person, what they were thinking. But of course, we're supposed to know the mind of the killer and exactly what he's thinking, because we've gone and researched these guys, and we've interviewed these guys, and they've told us things which are probably most of it lies, about how they were thinking. Okay. Then we get psychologists who are very Freudian, and they like to get into inside the minds of the killer, and they make determinations about things, which just drive me bloody insane. So the knife, I hear this from a lot of people, because I've said I do not believe this is a serial killer homicide. Could I be wrong? I could be, and then I'll slither away when it comes out as a serial killer. I don't believe it's a serial killer crime. I see no evidence of that. And one reason was there's no sexual assault. So many people have said, oh, but Pat, don't you understand psychology? Don't you understand that the knife could be representation of the penis, and the stabbing is the sexual assault because the guy is raping the woman with the knife because that is his penis? Okay. In that case, let me ask you this. When a guy strangles a woman, is that a vagina? See how that works? It's nonsense. It's psychobabble nonsense. And a Freudian type of things where certain things represent something else. You know what a knife is? It's a knife. You know why people like to use knives? Because it kills people. You know what they enjoy? They enjoy the fact that when they stab the person, the life goes out of them and they have killed them. It doesn't have to be a penis. If they want to use a penis, they'd use a penis. A penis is a tool in serial homicides. They don't need sex. It's a tool for power, control, and humiliation. And they have fun on the side, But then they often go home to their wives and have sex. So it's not that they need to have sex. It's that it's a tool in the completion of a crime. But a knife doesn't have to be a penis. It's just a knife. You can have fun with a knife. Women use knives. They don't have penises. They use knives to kill. They think it's fun too, because it's a thrill of, how can I put this? When the knife enters the body, it's just that concept that you are destroying that person with that knife. You're slithering into their body, slamming into their body, taking them out. That's what they get into. Strangling is feeling the pressure on their neck, watching their eyes go like this. That's what they get the thrill out of. It's not a vagina. Nobody has ever said that strangling is a vagina. You know why? Because most men are the ones who strangle. So no one suggested that. They all suggest the knife is a penis. Oh, stop it. Please stop it. This is psychobabble crap. And then I heard another thing on the channel, and I'm like, oh, Lord Almighty. Here we go again. Now, this person was talking about a thing called splitting. And the concept was a serial killer has two, the kind that have two lives, like Dennis Rader. He's got this normal life, and then he's got the serial killer life. And supposedly the claim was that he would leave like some pictures around to see if his wife would find him. And the claim was that in doing that, he was trying to merge his two lives into one person. because they were split, and he didn't want to be a split person. He wanted to merge them. And then he gave another example that I think it was maybe the Green River Killer. I can't remember, blanking. The guy killed this woman and her body was decomposing in a field. So he took his wife or significant other, whoever, to a field not too far from the decomposing body and had sex with her. And this was his attempt. Again, the splitting he had of the regular life and the other life, bringing them together. No, you know why they do this crap? Because it's fun. You know what? You bring your lady to a field, you have sex with her, knowing there's a decomposing corpse that you raped and murdered just over there. That's funny. That's amusing. You just get a damn fine kick out of it. That's all. It's not putting your personalities back together. Bullshit, psychobabble. Why do they do this? Why do they not understand how serial killers actually think and how psychopaths actually think? I don't understand this, because they supposedly got PhDs. They're doctors of psychiatry. What the heck is this Freudian garbage that's going around about the knife and the splitting? And I'm like, things are not as complicated as you think. It's not as complicated as all that. And that's the problem when you start listening to this stuff. People get so involved. And I see this, people go, oh my God, that's so fascinating. That's so brilliant. And I'm thinking, that's so bullshit. And it bothers me because one of the things I've always said when people ask me why I got into this field, are you fascinated with the minds of serial killers? I'm like, no, they're very mundane, actually. I'm fascinated with the puzzle of solving the crime. I'm interested in crime scene analysis, always have been. The Sherlock Holmes thing. It's like, here you have a crime. What details of the crime would lead me to be able to determine who committed the crime, why they committed it, and where they are. But the minds of these people are not that spectacular to me. I can understand. Serial killers are not that different from regular people as far as their minds go, in the sense that we do a lot of similar shit. We do. For example, let's see, what's an example? If you take the most extreme things of serial killers and you take them down on a few notches, you see our own selves. People like to manipulate. They do lie. For example, a guy will take a woman home from a bar, have sex with her, and have no concern about her well-being. He gets a thrill out of the power and control he got to nail her. So the serial killer goes one little further with that, So there's just humans are humans. They're just more extreme on one end to the other. And the concepts that they sometimes come up in the psychiatric community, I think they spend a lot of time with all these just peculiar notions that then they try to weave together, and then they claim it's true, and there's never any proof that it is true. And it bugs me because it just sends you off on a tangent that you don't need to be on. Okay, so serial killers are like that. People just give them too much credit, oh, this is so fascinating. Don't be fascinated by serial killers. They're not fascinating. They're dangerous. And stop being so enthralled by them and what they have to say, because most of the time they're playing you if they're saying that crap. Just sorry. That's my little tangent for today. Marie says, I was fascinated by that FBI profiling thing at a point, but I also found that if it was me, they would probably find me guilty. I found that I act differently to most people. And this is true. We have cultural issues. We have how we were raised issues. And you can't always marry the things together with being a certain way. Behavior is very important. Behavior is what it's really about, not the psychology of the killer, but the behavior of the killer. We don't know the psychology of the killer, why he does stuff. That's in the mind of the profiler. They're making that shit up. Just look at the behavior of the killer. I can't make up the behavior of the killer because it's true. It's happening right there at the scene. So if the killer does some weird stuff at the scene, like say Danny Rowland. Danny Rowland breaks in, he duct tapes the ladies, he likes to talk to them, then he rapes them, he stabs them in the back, cuts one girl, he cut her head off and stuck it up there on the bookcase to look at the police when they came in. That's behavior. I can say that his behaviors show something, that this is the things, this is very clear what the behavior is. But if I start, oops, sorry, I just hit the mic. Sorry. If I get into the mind of Danny Rolling and say, but Danny Rolling is suffering from, let's see, he's suffering from splitting. He had this hidden life and he really wanted to be respected as a regular person. I don't know this crap. I don't. What I do know was what happened in that house. Now we have to say, who do we look for based on those behaviors? A guy who runs around with a knife, for example. He's committed a number of crimes with the same kind of knife. We're looking for that guy. He's in the area, obviously, because he's been there for a while. He's committed 3 homicides in a row in that area. We have a similar homicide down in Shreveport, Louisiana. Maybe we should be checking that out to see who lived in both places. These kind of things. These are behaviors. It appears the guy did not have a car. So that's an important point. Where is this guy living? Is he actually working? We have robberies in the area. Is the guy not working? And therefore, he needs money for committing, to survive. We know these are things we can look at. But getting too deep into the mind of the killer and going through all this psychobabble is just, it's not serving any purpose except it makes people thrilled and intrigued by how fascinating that killer is. Like Ted Bundy. Oh my God, he was so fascinating. Personally, I don't think he's so fascinating. He's a creep. He's a creep who murdered one woman after the other woman after other woman. There was a lot of police incompetence in that case. Shouldn't have happened the way it did. And that's it. So what? I don't care how he gets off. I really don't. I just don't. I don't understand the issue there. All right. Sorry. Freud. To me, Freud messed up a whole lot of ideas about the human psyche. Yes, I agree. I have some really sad examples of police here in Scandinavia because of repressed memories. Oh God, the repressed memories. This is a whole bunch of bunk that psychologists came up with, or psychiatrists, and they've convinced people they have repressed memories from when they're 2 and 1 years old, and then these people come forth with the belief that they were sexually molested, and they've taken down some innocent people by doing so. It's nonsense, and it's very, very sad. You can a person, first of all, the person is going to a psychologist. You can already say they have some concerns in their own head. They have issues, okay? And that they are easily misled by people who are professionals because they believe the professionals know more than they do. And therefore, the professional can lead them down whatever path they want to lead them down to. And as long as they come back every week and pay them money again, they make a lot of money. And it's really, really sad. So yeah, I have a lot of issues with that. I wish you spoke Swedish, Pat. No, I don't. Yeah, sorry. I speak like one line of Danish. I have, and that's just at least one country over, right? I have such an interesting case I would love you to look at about repressed memory. Yeah, it's so many cases around the world have now become problems. So they're now saying that the repressed memory thing is a bunch of garbage, recovered memory and all that stuff. It's just really sad. Only a psychiatrist treating then truly can diagnose the killer. No, not even then, Maui. No, this is the problem. Most psychiatrists don't understand psychopaths, and psychopaths cannot be treated. They don't recognize a lot of times when psychopaths are lying to them. Psychopaths are 100% manipulators, and they're often very glib. They're very good at, especially if they've been in prison for a while, they learn the techniques of manipulating people. And unless you really know what they're doing, you will get fooled. Now, do I think I'm good at listening to psychopaths and serial killers? Yes, I do. Why? Because I'm not fooled. I already go in going, you're playing me, aren't you? Let me play you back. Because I'm aware of that. But a lot of other, even profilers can be entranced by serial killers. Oh, well, I wonder how they think. Oh, let me see what they say. And they'll buy a lot of things they shouldn't buy. And it's very frustrating to me. You have to go in understanding what you're dealing with, which is a con artist. Once you know that, you can get information out of them, but you have to trick them into giving you the information properly. Because otherwise, they're going to either tell you what you want, or they're going to fabricate stuff that you're going to believe. And it all serves their purpose, because a psychopath is all about himself, not about you. So he's not interested in helping humanity, helping the police. All that's nonsense. Or helping profilers understand psychopaths and killers. They don't care about that crap. Are you kidding me? They care about themselves and what they can get out of it. Sometimes it's just watching your expression when they tell you stuff. They sometimes like to explain their crimes to you because they're gruesome, and then they watch the profiler's face as they're horrified, and that gives them a cheap ass thrill that they can't get anymore because they're in prison. Just so sad. Sandra says, I never understood why people thought Bundy was so handsome, smart, etc. He just looked like a creep to me. I'm with you. I didn't find him handsome either. I will say he's probably good at. You have to understand. You got different levels of people. Okay, when I say levels of people, as far as needs, you got a person up here who is not needy at all. You got a person down here who's very needy. When a person gets down here is very needy, they'll often be easily manipulated into something. Let me show you a little example. I saw this catfishing thing. Theoretical. It's not really even catfishing, but it cracked me up. Okay, so this woman. Oh Lord God. This one. Let me find a story on her. She. Let's see, where's my story on her? Come on now. Here we are. Okay. Her name is, she put her name out on the internet, so I'm going to go ahead and it's let you know who it is. Okay. The name of the article from the New York Post is, I flew to Bali for a first date and he ghosted me. Then we wound up on the same flight home. Oh no. A Sydney woman, her name is Jess Austin. She's 29 years old. She lives in Australia. She flew to Bali for a first date, as detailed the mortifying moment she realized she had been stood up. She hopped on a plane to Indonesia to meet a man she'd been talking to online for several months after he invited her to join him on holiday. But after paying for flights and traveling more than 6 hours, Jess said she was left feeling stupid and embarrassed when her date ghosted her, leaving her to fend for herself in a foreign country. Okay, and a final cruel twist, Jess then came face to face with her ghost on the flight home, where he dished out another brutal blow by basically saying he met somebody else there and was off to have a good time with them and decided to dump her because the other girl was hotter. I'm going to say, looking at a woman, the other girl was hotter. That's mean, isn't it? But it's true. Okay, so once you have makeup on, maybe she looks a little better. But okay. The girl's not a 10. The girl's like a 5. I've also seen her on Twitter and on whatever she was on here, Instagram, just talking. And I'm telling you, if I were on that plane and I saw her talking to anybody, I would dump her in like 3 seconds flat. She's annoying as hell. She's self-centered. She takes no blame for anything. She blames everybody else for her stupidity. I'm going to say that dude ever wanted to actually be with her, he would have dumped her before. It's like, oh my God, that's what I'm getting stuck with. I'm going to go find another lady. But then again, maybe the guy's just a jerk. Okay. The guy could be a jerk. But here's the thing. What stupid person, after talking to somebody on the internet, she didn't know who the guy's name was. She wondered whether he was catfishing and wasn't even the guy. Didn't you ask to see his little license? Didn't you do any FaceTiming so that you knew what he looked like and who he actually was? Didn't you ask for any credentials before you spent money to get on a flight to fly away to go meet somebody you didn't know who you were going to have sex with, because otherwise he wouldn't have invited you? So you were willing to go have sex with a complete stranger you hardly knew, didn't even know who he was, and spend all that money. Girl, you're stupid. Okay? Stop blaming everybody else. You're stupid. Okay? Sorry. You're stupid. Okay. So you're desperate. You're desperate. You're not a 10. You're a 5. Stay home. Be an attractive human being. And by attractive, I mean everybody who's a 5 can be an attractive 5. Okay? That's life. We're dealt some set of cards. When I was 19, I was pretty hot. Now I'm 67. My numbers have dropped. Guess what? I don't go for 30-year-old guys. I'm not a cougar. If somebody finds me attractive, it'll be because I have a nice smile, because They like my personality, and probably because they're 80. Okay, that's just the way life is. Okay, so this girl could find a guy in her hometown. Maybe she could be a nice person. She could be the kind of person that you want to bring home to mom, because and somebody you'd like to be the mother of your children. She may not be a 10, but she'd be an awesome 5. And you don't care that she's a 5 because you find her attractive, just because she's not like, going to be in Sports Illustrated, which most people aren't. She can still be a fun, attractive, lovely person. But I'm going to say she was probably going for the 10 herself. And she was willing to spend the money because somebody said, oh, you're stupid and you're narcissistic. So you have that problem. So when you go back to Ted Bundy, who hooked up with this dude? It had to be creepy. I'm sorry. That guy had to have weird issues. And the girls did say who were with him, they did have weird issues. But how desperate were they to stay with this guy? And that's a sad thing. Ladies and men, stop being so desperate. You can do without a relationship for quite a number of years. You could do without sex for a while. You know what I mean? You can live. You can live by having a great life. And then when it finally comes around, you're not the right person, you'll be thankful you waited because you won't be married to a psychopath. So that's my thoughts on that one. Let me go look at your comments. Oh, Lord. FaceTime, FaceTiming is obviously, why would anybody in these days and age not FaceTime with somebody they don't know who the heck they're dealing with? Because that gets rid of catfishing really, really quickly, because you will see that person in real time. And you'll see what they look like. I mean, I think there are some methodology, maybe. I don't think it's FaceTime. You can do some face apping to videos now, so your video looks much better. I'm pretty sure that Jane Fonda in her new movie has a whole hell of a lot of video editing to make her face look gorgeous, because in her 80s, she looks way hell of a lot better than me in my 60s. I wish I looked like her. I wish I looked like her now. I only have to wait till I'm 80. So you can FaceTime and you can see the person, and at least and then they ask for their ID. If you're going to go meet anybody, any place, for God's sakes, ask for the ID. Next, go there anyway. Don't go someplace just to meet that person. Go there anyway because you want to have a nice vacation. Turns out they suck. You don't want they turn out not to show up. You have a lovely vacation anyway. You're not going there with this ridiculous ideas if this guy's just so into you. Guess he wasn't into you, was he, girl? Oh, Lord God. Okay. Marie says, honestly, I often misread people. I do struggle on reading people's intentions because of my autism. So I can't tell who's a killer and who isn't. Sometimes I'm too trusting, sometimes too critical. Well, my theory is this. I think we jump too quickly to feel we need to have any kind of true relationship with people in these days. Once upon a time, we grew up in a village, or we were in an area where we knew everyone. We'd grown up with the people. We had known them for a long time. Now we think we should meet somebody and have an instant understanding of whether they're good or bad. Nonsense. Not at all. I think you have to be very cautious unless you know the person for a long time. Don't trust anybody you don't know for a long time. When people say, don't you trust me? I'm like, I've known you for like a day. No, you shouldn't trust me either. You know a damn thing about me. Even all you guys, my wonderful patrons here, subscribers, you don't know a damn thing about who I really am, do you? You only see my online persona. I could be a real shitbird. and on that note, I'm just going to bring up the Twitch suicide, just because, it's a funny thing. Here's Twitch. Let me go to his. If anybody doesn't know who this guy is, he was on, was it Dancing with the Stars? And honest to God, I actually didn't know. I did not actually know who he was until he committed suicide. But he has been, his name is Stephen, they call him Twitch, because it was a DJ. So it was a DJ, his name was Twitch. Stephen Twitch Boss died by suicide. His wife is Allison, I think her name is Holker, but I don't know the shows, so I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Those are their 3 kids. All right. They shared daughter Wesley, 14, son Maddox, 6, and Zaya, 3. All right. And the last time they appeared, I believe, on TV was on Jennifer Hudson's show, November 17th. And she said she wanted to try for a fourth child. And boss said, I love little babies. I love them. But he didn't seem like he really wanted to have any more kids. But anyway, they are fabulous dancers, just fabulous. If you go on, you can go on Twitter and see their cute dances. I mean, it's absolutely adorable. It's adorable. And they're, as a couple, they're freaking adorable. They look like they're madly in love. They've just celebrated their 9th anniversary. They're just, I mean, they look like they are just still in love after 9 years. They had all kinds of projects in the works. They seemed happy. They were doing these little fun dances. The kids were jumping in on them. And then he leaves home without his car, and his wife doesn't know where he is. He doesn't come back. She contacts the police, and the next day they find him dead in a motel room nearby, shot in the head with his own weapon. And he left a suicide note, which is, we haven't gotten the information on what happened, why he would commit suicide. Now, I am at a loss. Now, I don't know this guy. I haven't spent a lot of time looking at stuff, but I actually was affected by this because they look so freaking happy. And everybody says, my God, they look like the happiest couple ever. He was on Ellen's show. And apparently he was always, like I said, full of light and love, just the most delightful person. And then he goes and kills himself. Why? Why the hell did he do it? Why? Why would he do this to his kids, 3 children and his wife, who adored him supposedly? Why would he do this to them? Now, I know people say all the time, well, people who are very, very depressed can't think about anybody else. But damn it, you just ruined the lives of your 3 kids and wife. In my opinion, selfishness. Why were you so selfish? Why were you so narcissistic, maybe, that you would just do that to them? Why did you never seek help? Because his wife says, I never saw it coming. And there are people who say, well, you know, people who are severely depressed can put on a face, and they can always pretend they're happy, but they're severely depressed. And the wife never saw anything? I find that really hard to believe. I do. I mean, I know people say that, but I find that extremely hard to believe that. I understand where people outside, like myself and yourself and maybe friends, wouldn't see it. But I can't believe you can live with someone 24 hours a day and not see that they're suffering some kind of issues. I don't know if he is the kind of person that could never, ever, like more like the one I always forget. Sorry, I have a block on the BPD, but not bipolar. I can never remember that stupid. Why is that? I have a problem with it every time. Yeah, I've had a block on this for years. I don't know why. I honestly don't know. So let me look it up so I can get this back. Really, what is wrong with me? Somebody will just pop up and tell me what I'm talking about. Why can I never remember the name of it? It's because bipolar comes into my head more often, and that's borderline personality disorder. Borderline just always flies out of my head, and bipolar comes in. Borderline personality disorder. That's a person who can never, ever seem this glass half full person. No matter how much they get, no matter how much love, fame, money, whatever, it's never enough. They still feel like a failure. Is that what happened to Twitch? I don't know, but somebody would see that because I've lived with people who have that problem, and I saw it every day. It was there. It's not like it was some kind of hidden thing. So how was it? His wife says they never showed anything. I don't believe it. I don't believe a person is that. You can hide things from a bunch of people, but you can't hide everything. So I would believe he's borderline personality disorder, and just he never, ever could feel like it was enough. That's my guess, but it's sad. It's super sad because and I think people who feel like they can't, it's never enough, sometimes blame the people around them. Like, I'm being forced to do this, I'm being forced to do that, and I'm not getting what I need out of it, and I'm forced to be a father, I'm forced to be a husband, I'm forced to be a dancer, I'm forced to make money, and I'm forced to be happy, I'm forced to be this, I'm forced to be that, and therefore that for that reason I can kill myself, and it's your fault. You blame somebody else for where you're at. I don't know. I'm just making this stuff up because I just don't know. But it's when you talk about what you don't know sometimes, certainly when you meet people for the first time or even get involved in a relationship, you may not see things for a long period of time. I often recommend that you never, ever, ever get engaged for at least 2 years, because you should, and spend a lot of time with that person to get to know, are they the kind of person you want to marry, or are the problems evident? When you get married too quickly, you may never see them. And then I always say, after you got married, wait 2 years before you have kids to make sure they're a keeper, make sure they really want to be a parent. And that's another 2 years of finding out if they have significant issues, which would be problematic. And then if that's true, get out of there. Get out of there before it gets worse. There's just some thoughts on that. Yeah. That's an interesting, this people say all the time, he probably felt they would be better off without him. I hear this constantly, and I just don't think it's true. Because if supposedly he's like this great guy, and he's always this wonderful guy, why would they be better off without him? Why? Or is he better off without having to put the effort out to be that great guy? I'd say that's more the issue. I just can't believe that's well, you'd be better off without me. No, only if you're a shitty dad, if you're a horrible person, if you beat them, if you talk down to them. But then wifey should know that he's a crappy father, and she says he was a great father. I would be more likely to believe he just couldn't take the pressure anymore of having to be that person, because he felt, for whatever reasons, he had to live up to things he didn't want to have to live up to. That's just my opinion on that. I could be wrong. I despise suicide. Just suicide to me is murder. It used to be called self-murder, and I agree with that. When you murder yourself, you kill the people around you. When you murder yourself, it's almost worse than if somebody else murders you. Somebody else murders you, the family can say, well, it's not our fault. When you murder yourself, you are absolutely making the family feel they failed. And they live the rest of their life feeling they failed you. They didn't see it coming. They didn't help you. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. And they have to live with the fact that you would rather be dead than with them. Self-murder is a very cruel murder. And I think we need to start pushing that, because it's too much now I see as suicide is just like, if you didn't mean to hurt anybody. Maybe we should just get a little bit more realistic. Maybe we should be calling it self-murder and a cruel murder. Maybe we should be honest. Maybe he knows he's faking it. Maybe. But, he can walk away from faking it. But the question is, what is he faking? Did he not like dancing? Did he not like making money? Did he not like having to be happy? Did he not like having to be a father or a husband? What was he faking? Because one of the sad things about people with very insecure people who have what I consider borderline personality disorder, is that they feel like people are forcing them to be what they are not. And they often don't have to be what they think that they're being forced into. And you can often walk away from things if you don't want to do them. And that takes courage. And maybe that he lacked courage, because like YouTube, I've seen a lot of people get very depressed doing YouTube, being YouTube content providers, because there's a lot of pressure. Don't you ever understand? There's a lot of work that goes into being on YouTube, because you can't just walk away and say, I think I'll just take a little break. Everybody's going, when's the next show? And you feel pressure to get the next show out. I've made a determination that I will stick with one case show a week, one hangout, and only some major news. Because I don't want to put myself in the stress situation where I can no longer do it, where I cannot provide good stuff for you guys. And I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live under those conditions. So I'm going to make sure that I don't do more than I can do. And if one day I wake up and say, I cannot do YouTube anymore, the pressure is just too much, I just want to go sit in a corner and knit and paint pictures, I will say my goodbyes. And I'll say, I hope I served you well. The rest of my videos will be on YouTube forever. I'm out of here. I'm hoping that doesn't happen anytime soon. But see, I am in control of what I do, and I don't blame other people for my choices. I don't say, I feel forced into it and I can't get out of it. But, this is a problem with some people, and it's a psychiatric problem that would be nice if they got some help on, but a lot of times they won't get that kind of help. And of course, apparently Twitch never went to a psychiatrist or a therapist or anybody and said, I'm having issues. At least not that we know of. It's just so sad. It's just really, really super sad. That That's a very good thing. In every situation, I ask myself what I could have done differently. There you go. I like that, Aunt Dini. That is excellent, because we are the masters of our own lives. Yes, people have influence. Yes, we feel pressured sometimes, but yes, we are the ones who say yes or no. And I've made my mistakes. I've looked and gone, damn, that was stupid. That was embarrassing. That was humiliating. That was whatever it was. But although I may not like the other person who was involved, it comes back to me because I was the one that said yes. So there you go. That I don't know. Did he think he was a great guy? I don't know. He may have thought he was a terrible guy and had suffered from real insecurity. I don't know. It's just so freaking sad. Wow, really? You didn't see it coming with any of them? How close were you, though? Because I honestly believe, I find it hard to believe there's no sign at all. And not necessarily that they're going to commit suicide, but not a sign that they weren't happy with themselves or with life, or they were blaming people. There's usually, maybe because I'm a profiler, I see it quicker. But I think a lot of people dismiss these things. And that's why they feel guilty later. They're like, I didn't see it. And then later they go, oh, maybe I did see it. And I just, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do about it? You're not that person. You can't make their lives good for them. You can suggest things, and usually when you suggest things, they just tear you down. They're like, well, no, I don't want to do that. Why are you always telling me what to do? And then you go, okay, never mind. Whatever. And then one day they kill themselves, and you're like, so you did see things, but you couldn't do anything about the things because they are the masters of their own life. You aren't. So Allison says, when you're suicidal, you can't stand the pain, and you figure the people around you will get over it. You feel you don't really make a big difference to people. That's what people say. But I find a high level of narcissism there, because even if I am depressed and feeling horrible, I know that killing myself is going to affect people. I'm not that ignorant that I don't know that my kids aren't going to suffer from it. My friends aren't going to suffer from it. I may feel like I don't contribute much, but I don't know. I have a very different opinion on that. I think a lot of times that is the problem, that we're too into ourselves to care enough about what other people feel. And people don't want to admit that. Man, they like to always say, well, they just didn't know. I don't know that that's true. Just don't know. I have a different opinion. I'm not saying I'm right, but suicide pisses me off really badly, because I know what it does to people. It's so cruel. It's like the cruelest thing ever. And that's why so many people come to me where their kids have committed suicide and they swear they were murdered. They can't stand the suicide. They'd rather have their kids be killed by some other person. And usually it is suicide, and they cannot live with it. That's how bad it is for that person, the family, the friends. They don't do well with it. The only way I've ever seen people accept it is the person has a terminal disease, and the pain is so severe in the terminal disease, they decide to take themselves out a little earlier. I think people are miffed that they didn't get to spend that extra time, but they understand it, and they can let that go. So I think that's an entirely different situation than killing yourself when everything, when you're supposed to be there for your kids. Now your children have a father. Now they have a father who killed himself, and now they have to live with that. That's incredibly cruel. I'm sorry. I can't. I don't know. It's one of those conundrums. People believe they couldn't, they wanted to not hurt people, and over here, do they want to hurt people? What is it? What is it? That's very sad. Anyway, just that one drives me crazy. It's just awful. Anyway, I always want to bring this one up. This is just a quick thing about, this happened in Toronto. 8 teenage girls stabbed a homeless man, 59, to death while trying to steal his alcohol. They were age 13 to 16, and they committed a crime called swarming. They just swarmed him and started stabbing him to death on the sidewalk while he was just sitting there. And what really bugs me about this crime, in fact, you have a murder committed by a whole bunch of kids. This is similar to a wilding. They're calling this a swarming. So a wilding often involves more intimate stuff, like either it's a rape, it's a sexual homicide that they're all involved in, or they hate one of the other teens, and so they do a wilding on them. Or sometimes they do, pick people in a park, although the claim is in Central Park it wasn't a wilding, it was something else. But they're not calling this a swarming, because they literally swarmed on him and just all started. 13 to 16 years old. Here was the thing that bugged me. This happened in the early hours of the morning, after midnight, near 1 o'clock. Where were the parents? Your children are 13 to 16 years old. Why are they out on the streets of Toronto after midnight? I'm thinking all those parents should be taken in for child neglect. Every single one of them. There's no excuse for that. 13-year-olds out there after midnight? These are all girls. Oh, by the way, they're all girls. They're not guys. They're all girls. Unbelievable. Just a really super, super sad thing, that young. That was just a weird one that popped up. Now, I wanted to answer the question about confessions, because somebody asked me about confessions. And I think this is really quite fascinating. And one of the questions was this: deathbed confessions or denials, how good are they? What an interesting question. All right. The reason they used to close cases with deathbed confessions was this seemed to be, there's no reason why you would confess to a horrific crime unless you were dying and wanted to get it off your chest, before you died. And that's a reasonable thing to think, that if somebody does that, then maybe there's a truth to it. This is actually true in the, okay, hold on a second. No, man. No, I forgot the case. The little boy that took camping and God, what? Oh man, I forget my own cases. Somebody help me out here. The video I did on the little boy, the father, mother, and grandfather and the friend took him camping, and then he vanished, and they've never found his body. Somebody throw me the name of the case, because I'm blanking here. What's his name? Oh, thank you. Oh, okay. There we go. DeOrr Kunz. Okay, DeOrr. Yes, DeOrr. Little DeOrr. One of the things that happened is his grandfather, before his grandfather died, he confessed that he hadn't properly kept an eye on DeOrr. And that's interesting, because why would the grandfather say that unless it were true? If the parent, now here you have to get into the, could there be another reason? And this is the problem with confessions in general. Can there be another reason somebody confesses to something they did not do? It's possible. They could be covering for someone. They could be telling it because there's no reason not to be honest now. Now, grandfather says, hey, I'm just going to let you guys know I wasn't watching the kid. I'm really, really sorry. And it's my fault. He doesn't want to die without letting his family know that it was his fault. In which case, the parents of DeOrr Kunz didn't do anything wrong. They left the child in care of a relative who didn't properly care for him, and something happened to him. It wasn't their fault. They aren't murderers like many people think, if the grandfather's confession is true. But, of course, people will say, is it possible he was just saying that as a last thing to say in order to cover for the family? Possibly. Here's another thing people have to take into consideration. Is it possible that somebody's lying about the deathbed confession? Because who is usually there at the deathbed? Strangers? Well, not usually. Usually it's family, you see. Unless there's a priest standing there and he tells the priest that, you know what I mean? And then the priest can go to the police and say, this is what the guy said. I can confirm that. But if it's not a priest, if it's the family, they may make up that crap just to pin it on somebody. So you see, it gets a little sketchy as to know why they said that. Also, they may say at the end, I didn't do it. So it's the I didn't do confession. So would they have a reason to lie before they die? Well, heck yes, because maybe they want everybody to think they were innocent, especially family. I didn't kill off whomever. I'm not a serial killer. I didn't kill my wife. I didn't kill my kid. They'll lie. If they lie before, they might lie on the deathbed going, I didn't do it, still wanting to go out with everybody thinking good things about them. So is a deathbed confession really something that you can believe, or is it just something? I would go with it's just something. I think it's something you take into consideration, but you have to look at all the other evidence. I don't think it holds as a 100% anything. So yeah, it's tricky. Very, very tricky. They're not allowed to say anything? Okay. Oh, I was thinking about that myself. Priests are not allowed to say a word about what you confess, are they? I know that's true for when you're going to confession. I don't know if it's not true on the deathbed, but if it's true on the deathbed, well then, yeah, maybe a pastor isn't. So I don't know who's not somebody, maybe a nurse or a doctor, somebody they're telling that's not family. Maybe that's the person you could say that they heard the confession at least. It's hard to say. But you can't absolutely believe it. That's the problem. And I think, but in the past, deathbed confessions have been considered like way in the past. Oh, this is an absolute because this person confessed on the deathbed. Therefore, this is acceptable in a court of law. And I think it's not necessarily so. There was a one I wanted to do about the confession issues. Let me see if I can find it here. Oh, but before I do that, because I forgot to do this, I have to go back to Idaho for just a second, because this is another thing. People, when I did Idaho, people were saying, and I told them it's not like Ted Bundy and it's not like Danny Rowland, because I don't see this as a serial killer crime, and I got a lot of flack for it. But what people did seem to think was that I was like, oh, well, maybe it's more like Richard Speck. Okay. He was the one that killed all the 8 student nurses. It's Richard Speck kind of crime. One of the things I was trying to point out in Idaho was that there was no sexual assault, unless you believe in the knife thing. There's no sexual assault. Now, could it have been a plan and it went awry? Possibly. But generally speaking, when somebody goes into a place with that many people in it and kills that many people, it's a mass murder by somebody like an incel, or it is a targeted murder by somebody they didn't like and they took out. The rest is collateral damage. Rarely is that a serial killer, unless they're on a spree. Ted Bundy was on a spree. Danny Rowling didn't actually kill 4. He killed 3 in one of his, but the 2 were collateral damage. He went in to get the woman, and the other 2 men were just a collateral damage for a sexual homicide. All 3 of his he had 4 crimes that we know of. All of them were sexual homicides. And the first one was 3 because there was a father and a son. The second one was 2 girls. Next one was 1 girl. And the next one was, okay, I get them confused, the order of them. One had a roommate there was male. He was collateral damage. And then there was one with 1 girl, one with 2 girls. Ted Bundy's really the only one who went into a room, place with a whole bunch of girls. But still, he was on a spree. He was a serial killer on a spree, and he did try sexually assault one of the girls. So, yeah. So now we look at Richard Speck. Oh, my God. This guy he's like a massive criminal. He's one of these that is the rare serial killer in that he doesn't have the hidden life as a serial killer. He's a criminal. There's just a criminal guy. Commits every kind of crime in the book. Okay? Every kind of crime. He committed robberies, burglaries, and assaults and all kinds of crap. I won't go through his whole thing. I'll just go into the last day right before he killed the girls, because I think this shows how it's not, again, like Idaho. At 11 p.m. on 1966, he broke into a townhouse. It was functioning as a dormitory for student nurses. He entered using only a knife. He killed 7 out of the 8 girls. 1 girl hid under a bed. He later claimed he was both drunk and high on drugs, which actually he did drink and do drugs, and he may have originally planned to commit a routine burglary. Speck held each woman in a room for hours, leading them out one by one, stabbing or strangling them to death, and then finally raping and strangling his last victim. Okay? And that's how that went down. Prior to that, though, listen to what happened prior to that. Speck's, let's see what happened to him. He checked into this location because he was not where he lived, but he was checking into this location. And he was waiting for a job, and he got tired. He had $25 his sister had given him, so he went to Shipyard Inn. He spent the rest of the day drinking in nearby taverns, where he accosted Ellie Mae Hooper at knife point. She was a 53-year-old woman who had spent the day drinking at the same taverns that Speck had patronized. He took her to his room at the Shipyard Inn, raped her, and stole her black $16 mail-order caliber pistol. He then left dressed entirely in black, armed with a switchblade and her handgun. Then he went to dinner at another location, and then he attacked the women. Not like Idaho. This guy is like criminal, rapist, killer, and then he went into this place, and he still sexually assaulted one of the girls. So I just want to get, Speck is not like this either. So let's not jump to things that we don't have any evidence of. This looks like a one-off crime as far as we know. And it's very unlikely anybody would come in from out of town to commit this crime. And somebody on a spree, we don't have any spree information, anything like that going on at this point. All we have is the person went in and killed 4 people and no sexual assault. So it does look like a targeted crime. That is not a serial killer. So I just want to point that out. I don't think it's Richard Speck either. So Freud, everything was about 6 with that guy. It tells us more about Freud's brain than neurology. Sorry, I really don't like Freud. I'm with you there. Pat, I think Idaho, hi Benny, was done by an incel, but don't they normally want to make a statement, manifest, or even kill themselves right after? Yes, in some senses they do. There's a lot who are, this is usually when a person does a mass murder, it's their day in the sun, and they do want to have that manifesto. They don't even care if they're caught. They may kill themselves. Yes, this is true. But that doesn't mean there isn't someone there who is angry at somebody. And that to me is the top theory, that there was an anger toward somebody in that house. This is why I said they had to look at the boyfriend first of Kaylee, because they had a relationship that was a mess at that point. So they have to look there. I don't know about the other 2 girls, whether there was something there that in their history. I don't know if there was somebody who was just angry at girls in general. I don't know. And those girls in general. It's hard to say. And that's why we just don't know enough, and we can't go further. But I certainly don't see it as a serial killer. But yes, you're correct. Most incel guys, they kind of like to be known as far as why they're doing what they're doing. But that doesn't mean they can't commit a crime behind the scenes and not take credit for it. It's that I don't think is not unheard of, And sometimes I like to, that's, they get that satisfaction out of proving themselves at that moment. So maybe the guy expected to be caught, wasn't. It's like, I can't believe I got away with that. Don't know. But I think they have to look at the personal relationship, and they have to look at the incel. But I just don't think they're going to find that this is some serial killer that rolled in there and didn't bother to sexually assault anybody. That just would be that's just too weird. This really is. That's an interesting one. Tracy McNamara case. I have not heard of that one. Married her uncle and was accused of killing him. That's creepy. That's really creepy. Okay, let me go on to. I just want to mention Adnan Syed right now, just because I am very invested in that case. Adnan Syed, that's the serial. He was the one that was in prison for a couple decades for killing Heyman Lee. There's the subject of the serial podcast. And he is now free man because of Marilyn Mosby, who is our not so great Baltimore City. What is she? She was anyway. prosecutor. Anyway, Hae-Min Lee's brother is really pissed, which he should be. He is asking for an appeal, because, and I think the point is really great. The brother of Hae-Min Lee has said that he's asking the Maryland Court of Special Appeals to order a redo of the hearing that set the serial podcast subject free earlier this year. Specifically, Young Lee, Hae-Min Lee's brother, is asking a 3-judge panel to order a new hearing to determine whether Syed's murder conviction should be overturned and for the chance to present evidence at such a hearing. He didn't get a chance. They just told him like the day before, and he was like on the other side of the country. He never was able to appear. The prosecution, Marilyn Mosby, I think just wanted to make a big grandstand political play. And she knew that, you know, she's up for, she's under the gun for unlawful criminal acts herself. I believe she did this to get positive attention in the press. And she knew more people thought Adnan Syed was innocent than guilty because of the serial podcast. She thought she could get him off. She'd be the hero, which she has become, because what she did was she got these claims against the original prosecution to say they didn't let somebody, the defense know about this one thing, and it could have been somebody else who killed her. It's a pack of nonsense. It's a pack of nonsense. A jury found him guilty, and now they're just going to erase the jury and say, oh, well, we didn't agree with him because of something. So anyway, let me go say here's what he was released after prosecutors raised doubts about the integrity of the conviction, citing their revelation of alternative suspects. In every case, there's 1,000 alternative suspects. That doesn't mean they're actual suspects. They shouldn't have even been called suspects. Should be called persons of interest that they had to check into further, and they did, and they came up with nothing on them. So Baltimore State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby's office also used that hearing to discredit much of the original evidence. No, not much of. Teeny weeny bit they tried to discredit. And then they actually claim that DNA has proven him not to be guilty, and that is absolute lie. There was no DNA that proved anybody guilty. He wasn't proven guilty by DNA or not guilty by DNA. He was proven guilty by everything else that was connected to this crime. So she made a political move and released a guy who's been found guilty by a jury. What's the point of the system at all if you can just turn around and do that? I don't understand that. And so Hae-Min Lee's brother's a wee bit upset and wants another chance to speak up in court and say this is wrong, as he should. I don't think it's going to work, but I think it's just super sad. I want to talk about confessions after the fact, or proof after the fact. Somebody asked me to talk about the Ignatow case, Mel Ignatow. That is, let me find the guy. Oh, wait a minute. Before I do him, I want to do this other one. Hold on a second. Where'd my guy go? Okay, where is he? I want to do this one first because I think this is, we're talking about false confessions or real confessions, right? Actually, this is a real confession. Where is he? Where's my guy? Oh, here he is. Let me put Ignatow on the burner for a second, back burner. I want to talk about this guy because I think this is kind of interesting. Then this guy is, this is just funny in a sad way. But this guy pleads not guilty. And this amazes me that you can plead not guilty after reportedly posting a confession on Facebook. I also want you to pay attention to how they write these articles these days. He reportedly posted a confession on Facebook. No. He posted a confession on Facebook. It's on Facebook. It's not reportedly. It is a fact. So let's not go around the bush here because they're so scared of being sued. Family and friends of shooting victim Nicholas Byrd. Okay, they were upset because he was murdered, and they wore these. Okay, let me go. Not worry about the family saying this. They went to no hearing. They wore this clothing. Okay, Mark Bent, 41. That's this guy, Mark Bent, pleaded not guilty after being charged with first-degree murder for the shooting death of 23-year-old Nicholas Todd Byrd in September. Now listen to this. This is unbelievable. On the night of September 3rd, Idaho Falls. Oh, we're in Idaho. Police officers responded to a shooting that occurred on Clairview Lane in Idaho Falls. A caller had told dispatchers that a man was lying in the street and a full-size truck just left the area. The victim later identified a bird, had several gunshot wounds, and was transported to the ER as pronounced dead. The affidavit says that around 11 p.m. Around 11 p.m., dispatchers got a call from a man who said he was Mark Bent. This guy, I'm Mark Bent. And he was turning himself in. He told police he shot someone and identified that person as Nick Bird before telling officers that he was at the Albertsons on 17th Street and there was a gun in his truck. Officers found Bent and arrested him. A gun was located in the passenger seat of his car with ammunition that matched the shell casings in the area where the shooting occurred. You think he's guilty? Okay. So he confesses. The gun matches that, the shooting and everything, right? Now, then it says here, then they related, the officers were then alerted to that he seemingly posted a confession on his Facebook page, which was his Facebook page. So I don't know what seemingly is. In that post, and this is his post. I'm saddened to say that I have committed some serious crimes today that will put me in jail for the rest of my life or lead to death. As some of you know, shortly after I moved to Idaho Falls, I was slandered on Facebook with rumors of me being an undercover police officer. Those rumors were followed by threats, harassment, and more slander. Even after the facts were out that I'm not a police officer of any kind, people still chose to believe it and continued to harass, threaten me, and eventually look up where I live and work and post it on the internet. This all started from me being involved with a local Facebook group called the East Idaho Speed Hunters and a car club called the Castaways. After being involved with the Castaways for a short time and seeing that they were involved with a lot of illegal activities, I departed from them. Because of that, the rumor of me being an undercover police officer began, and even though it seemed to pass, the rumor eventually came back to light. People kept posting about me on Speed Hunters in a negative way to the point where I started to think about attacking one of the car meets shows they attend. They wanted to commit a mass murder here. But my main goal was to kill Nick Bird, the founder of the Castaways that started all of this by spreading rumors. He also posted where I work. So I told myself that if anything were to happen to my job, I will go after him. Unfortunately for him and his friends, I lost my job recently, so I followed said plans. Please let this be a lesson for those who think it's okay to spread rumors about someone and try to negatively impact their life on social media. You never know when someone's going to decide to do something about it, because if they do, it's too late. Mark. I'm going to say that's a confession, right? So anyway, so his main purpose was to kill Nick Bird, he says, and he killed Nick Bird, and the gun is there to prove it, and he confessed to the police as well. Then it says amusingly in this article, though Bent has been charged with these crimes, it does not necessarily mean he committed them. Okay. Everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. Okay. I think the reporter in this case is going a little overboard. You don't need to say all that stupidity because we all know he's guilty. If convicted, he gets a death penalty or life in prison. But I thought this was interesting because now he has said he's not guilty now when he goes to court. And it's like, clearly he can't go with an insanity plea because he was very clear about his reasoning and why he was doing it. He also knew that after he committed the crime, he had broken the law. He called the police and said, it was me who did this. He says on the Facebook page, I know I'm going down. There's no insanity plea here. So why is he saying he's not guilty? Why doesn't he just take any deal he can get and not go to court? That's an interesting thing. I'm actually curious to see what this is going to be in court. Maybe he's saying he's not guilty so he can get some kind of plea deal to admit he's guilty when obviously he is guilty. I mean, this is a funny thing about our court system. Some of this stuff is just like crazy stuff. It really is crazy stuff. I found that one just fascinating. Let's see. I want to go to the other one I was going to talk about because this is a case where I'm talking about a court system again and the issue of double jeopardy. This guy, where is it here? This guy here, let me find him. This is Ignatow. He's a wonderful fellow. And that is his girlfriend. Wait a minute. Yeah, his girlfriend, Brenda Sue Schaefer. Again, watch who you hook up with. Really, man, did she pick a bad one. All right, so he's been tried for the 1988. He was tried for the 1988 murder of his former girlfriend, Brenda Sue Schaefer. And I say this over and over again: if you ever leave somebody, never go back to their house. Never. Don't go see them alone. Don't go meet them some lonely place. Don't do that. If you're going to ever meet them, make sure it's in a public place. And even then, it's, they could just pull out a gun and shoot you. But at least do not go into a private location with somebody who is annoyed with you. All right. So anyway, he was tried for the 1988 murder of his former girlfriend, Brenda Sue Schaefer. The case is controversial. Why is this? Because Ignatow was acquitted of the charge, and he later admitted to killing Schaefer. This, first of all, the jury were idiots, absolute flaming idiots. And I want to slap them all, because this is ridiculous, the way they let this guy go. And you say, well, maybe they just weren't sure he did it. If they weren't sure he did it, I don't know what could have proven he did it. The case is, okay, so this was a double jeopardy issue. In the United States, once a guy is acquitted, even if he walks out of the court and says, I done did it, you can't arrest him. You cannot, because he has been acquitted. Now, you can get appeals over and over again if a guy has been found guilty and he's in prison. You can get appeals and then find him innocent or not guilty. But if a person's found not guilty and then you come up with a huge amount of evidence that proves they are guilty, you can't ever arrest them again. They've gotten away with it. It's kind of a strange concept. And the concept is you can't keep retrying a person just because you say, oh, now we've got more evidence. You see, it's a questionable thing there, because how much evidence is enough evidence to take somebody back to court? So the rule was no double jeopardy here, that even if he's found innocent by a bunch of idiots, no matter what you find as evidence, it's not going to be good enough. So he couldn't get it wasn't tried a second time. What they did was they convicted and jailed him for several instances of perjury. That's what they got him on, but he didn't spend that much time in jail. So anyway, what happened was they were in a relationship for 2 years at the time of the murder. Ignatow knew that Schaefer, who had complained that he was abusive, which is why if he's abusive, you get out and you never allow him to get near you again. As she complained, she was planning to break off the involvement. Now, get this one. I don't know how these guys get these women. He asked his former girlfriend, Mary Ann Shore, to help him plan and carry out the murder. Oh, I was so upset that you dumped me and went with another woman, but now that you want me to kill her and we can get back together, that's just dandy. What's wrong with these people, really? They spent several weeks making extensive preparations. Shore testified they had scream tested her house and dug a grave in the woods behind it. This is called premeditated. Okay. On September 23rd, Schaefer met Ignatow to return some jewelry of his that she had in her possession. That was the mistake. She went from her house to his house. She met him. Oh, no. Wait a minute. Oh, okay. So she went to his house, and then what happened was Ignatow took her to Shore's house, that's the ex-girlfriend, where he pulled a gun on her and locked her in the house. Schaefer was blindfolded, gagged, and bound. Ignatow forced Schaefer to strip, photographed her in suggestive positions, raped, sodomized, and beat her before killing her with chloroform. Shore, the ex-girlfriend, took pictures while Ignatow raped and tortured Schaefer and assisted Ignatow in covering up the murder. They buried her behind Shore's house. He took Schaefer's jewelry and the exposed film. All right. So what happened was, after she disappeared, they couldn't find any evidence, right? So they were frustrated, and then they decided to. They got Shore in, the ex-girlfriend. They interviewed her, and she eventually confessed to helping plan the murder and to taking pictures of Ignatow as he tortured and abused her. Shore also led the investigators to the grave site where Schaefer's badly decomposed body, had been buried for over a year. The autopsy showed she had been abused, but any evidence from blood and semen had decomposed. All right. They convinced her then to wear a wire, because now they had her confession. They had the body behind her house. But then she's saying that this guy made me do it, So they put a wire on her, promising only to charge her with tampering with evidence. So this is kind of really upsetting here. It's like she gets almost nothing for helping kill this woman. It's disgusting. In the surveillance, Shore told Ignatow that the FBI was hounding her and she was afraid the property behind her house was being sold and developed. He was on tape berating her for letting the FBI rattle her, and he didn't care if they dug up the whole property because that place we dug is not shallow. So now on tape, he has said he helped dig that grave. Based on the recording, they charge him with murder. All right, now, here's where everything went bad. In one section of the recorded conversation between Ignatow and Shore, he stated, "That place we dug is not shallow. Beside that one area right by where that site is does not have any trees by it." He described the site. The jury decided that Ignatow said safe, not site. This led the jurors to conclude that the discussion involved a buried safe. Okay, they found the body there. There was no safe there. So why the hell would you think he's talking about a buried safe in the place where the body was? They dug. So what? He dug a place and buried a safe, but that accidentally turned into a body? I don't even get this stuff. The defense argued that Shore, not Ignatow, had killed Schaefer. So that's when they said he didn't do it. So they acquitted Ignatow. The judge was so embarrassed by the verdict, he took the unusual step of writing a letter of apology to the Schaefer family. And then, how do you say that he found out that he really did do it? All right, 6 months after his acquittal, a carpet layer was working in Ignatow's old house, which had been sold to fund his defense. He pulled up a length of carpet in the hallway, and under it, he found a floor vent containing a plastic bag taped to the hole inside the vent. Inside the bag was the jewelry that Schaefer had taken with her on the night of her disappearance and 3 rolls of undeveloped film. When developed, the film showed Ignatow torturing and raping Schaefer, just as Shore had described. Ignatow's face was not in the pictures, but body hair patterns and moles matched him perfectly. Ignatow faced federal charges for perjury and lying to the FBI, but they couldn't get him with double jeopardy because he was already acquitted. So he ended up with 8 years and 1 month in prison. And then he got some more perjury charges. They did get him for 9 years for second-degree persistent felony offender. So they tried to find everything they could to get this guy put away. He was released for the second time in 2006, and he returned to Louisville. And then he was found dead in his apartment. Apparently he fell, cut his head or his arm, and bled to death. Oh, that's a shame. So according to his son, Michael, he's like, well, it's time for him to just be gone, just be gone. Very, 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 very sick man in the head. But he didn't get murder charges because we had a jury that was incompetent, and he couldn't, because there's double jeopardy. He couldn't, even with the proof that he actually killed her, they couldn't put him in prison, which is really scary shit. It's like, that's really, really bizarre. Really bizarre. Oh my gosh. Let's see. King of creeps. I'm not sure which creep you're talking about, but there's bunches of creeps. Yeah. I hate abusive men and women. Yeah. That's, I say, there is that, just to let everybody know, if that person is not loving you, if they're abusive in any way, which is physically or emotionally, run like hell. Run like hell. This is not something that's going to change. Nobody treats another person that way unless that's who they are. And if they're doing that, they're letting you see exactly who they are. Don't hang around for it. I mean, don't hang around. Just get out of there as quick as you can. It is very, very sad. I have one more thing I was going to talk about. One more thing, and this is just another. This is another case, which I just think is interesting because the guy eventually confessed like 3 different ways. And I just thought that was kind of interesting. Let's see, it's this fella here. His name is, let's see, the little boy is now an adult. And His name is Collier Landry, and he has a podcast, Moving Past Murder, if you're interested in listening to that. His father, Jack Boyle, killed his mother, Noreen Boyle, in 1989, and he was 11 years old. That's when it happened. And his father buried her in a crypt beneath the basement of their new house. And by the way, this is him with his mom at that time. And this is him actually testifying in court against his father at 11 years old. And this is his dad in court. Okay. So anyway, he buried her in this crypt in the basement, right? And let me show. The kid had a really rough life, but he was having a good life until then. He was in a private school. His mother and dad worked. Everything was fine. And he had a real close relationship with his mom. But apparently, his father was a bit nasty and short-tempered at home. And then he allegedly cheated on Noreen. Well, allegedly because he got another girl pregnant, and that's his half-sister now. So I think allegedly is out on this case too. So she had told him, 44 years old, she wanted out of the marriage. And here you go again. It's that time when you've been in an abusive relationship and you say you want to leave. Super dangerous. And you wonder why doesn't the guy he's got a girlfriend who's pregnant. Why not just let her leave? And it always comes down to money. And he probably didn't want her to get alimony or have to deal with her anymore. He persuaded her to give the relationship another chance by starting over in a gigantic house he purchased in Erie, Pennsylvania, where he planned to move his practice. Is an abusive guy. Don't give the marriage another chance. Run like hell. Stay with people to protect you. Meanwhile, prosecutors claim that Jack was secretly plotting to get rid of Noreen so he could marry his pregnant 26-year-old mistress, Sherry Campbell, and install her at the Erie residence. Just before the clock struck 1990, while Collier was in bed, he heard two loud thumps coming from Noreen's bedroom. He'd never see his mother alive again. In the days that followed, Jack told Collier that Noreen had taken off on a trip, and he said he told the police that would never happen. A month later, they found the crypt with Noreen's body in the Erie mansion. Investigators determined that Jack had rented a jackhammer to create a hole in the floor, placed a plastic shopping bag over her head, dropped her body into the floor cavity, poured new cement on top of it, and covered it with a rug. The slender woman died of blunt force trauma and suffocation. Pretty horrific. Collier, the kid, turned 12 just about the time the trial came around. And he testified what he heard on that night. His mother disappeared. He also detailed his father's neglect and physical abuse. So they were amazed at his calm demeanor when he was in the courtroom. He said, I knew that if the jury voted to acquit, my father would kill me for revenge. He was scared of his own dad. And they also, apparently his sister, who was little at the time, actually also said she saw this happen. She was in the room with her mother, and she saw her mother then wrapped up, like she said, some kind of Santa Claus thing. So she saw the whole thing go down. Really, really sad. But the real thing I want to bring up about this was his confessions. All right. So after he's in prison, he insisted his son was still alive. Now, we talk about pathological liar, and I want people to understand how much a psychopath will lie. Okay. He insisted his wife was alive and that it was some other anonymous woman found underneath the floor because a coroner's report had listed the wrong eye color. So who else did you put below the floor? If it wasn't your wife just vanished and you killed a homeless woman and put her underneath the floor? Because it's still you who did it, so crazy concept even there. Collier had to bear the exhumation of his mother's body only to find that it was indeed Noreen. Somebody had mistakenly put down brown eyes instead of blue eyes. It was a paperwork issue. Next, Jack would go into a full smear the victim mode. And this is very common for psychopaths who want to say the reason I killed the person is because. He hoped that the authorities would find new suspects. He said that Noreen participated in a baby selling operation. You see, so somebody else rented the jackhammer and put a hole in the floor of his new house and buried his wife there because she was involved in a baby selling operation. And then she was also involved in international gold jewelry smuggling. And also she had planned to burn down the mansion out of jealousy. We've got all kinds of ideas here. At some point, the 6'3" Jack changed his original story completely. In a popular go-to excuse for wife killers, he said he ended his spouse's life by accident. That's a much better thing to say than she's involved in a baby smuggling thing and somebody else killed her. While defending himself when she attacked him first. And he covered it up only out of fear he would take the blame. So that's why he covered it up. She attacked him first. I think he missed out on the best excuse ever, the best thing he could have said. Can you think of the one thing he blew? He's a psychopath. Sometimes I try to tell people they're not as smart as people think. He had a better choice as to a claim. Her attacking him is it's a better one than the baby thing. But what's another really good one he could have pulled off? Much better, in my opinion. I want to see if you have one. So, does anybody think what would have been the best claim he could have made? Considering we have some actual cases out in the world that actually this may be the reason things happen. What do you think? What would have been a better claim he could have made that would have gotten him a whole lot more sympathy than saying his wife attacked him? Yeah, there you go. Not his little baby kid, but who's blamed the kid? What kid? What kid should he blame? What kid should he blame? No, he already did the accident one. That one didn't work. Which kid should he blame for this crime? The boy. There you go. The boy, the older kid, the boy. Now think about this. Let's go back to the picture of the boy. Collier, who now has his sole show about his dad. There he is. 11 years old. He's on the stand. He very calmly says, my dad killed my mom. Right? Wouldn't a dad cover for his kid? What if the kid killed his mom? Hit her with something, bludgeoned his mom. Now the dad has to cover up for his kid. So he hides the mom's body. I'm surprised you didn't go with that one. That's a really good one. And, that might have worked. That might have worked. Because I would think that's a possibility. That's a real possibility. Because if the son does come off as very, when he's in court, very, very competent in speaking. And you wonder about the kid then. Is the kid psychopathic? So if I were the dad, I would have blamed the kid. And then he would have said, well, the kid, I just tried to save my son. And that's why I did it. Now, the problem is that she was leaving him, and there was that 26-year-old pregnant girlfriend. There was enough other evidence to say he killed his wife for other reasons, okay? Plus, a little girl even said she saw this happen in the mother's bedroom with the dad. So the son is in the clear. But see how close this could have been. If he hadn't had a pregnant girlfriend and the wife hadn't been leaving him, one could think he was covering for his son. It's funny he didn't think of that one. So the son was scared that if his dad got out, that his dad would kill him. So why wouldn't his dad just say my son did it? I'm surprised he didn't come up with that one. It's fascinating. Why would you come up with all the rest of the crap when you can blame your kid? Just interesting. So that's he was maybe the problem with him was he was too creative, and he wanted to blame his wife more than anybody else. You see how everything was her fault. It was her fault. It was her fault. She was involved in baby stuff, smuggling. She was involved in jewelry smuggling. She tried to attack me. He really had a thing against his wife, and he couldn't get his brain out of that. So he wanted to put the blame on her and not anybody else, which is fascinating to me. So, yeah. Wouldn't the kid have a history of violence? You would think he would have some history of being a psychopath. Yes, you would think that. Sure, Dad could have come up with a few good examples. Mom's not around to say it's not true. I'm just surprised he didn't come up with that, because that was the easy one to come up with. But again, I think his problem was he was very angry with the wife, and that's why he couldn't get his mind out of that. So this is somehow, I just want to have you understand, psychopaths aren't always brilliant, and they don't always pick the smart thing to do. They say really stupid stuff sometimes, and that's why if you're a detective and you're interviewing these guys, you can sometimes get them to trip up because of their own inability to understand themselves and understand how that you can understand them, or that you're onto them. They don't necessarily see that. They don't have the greatest insight in the world, which is why I get so upset when I see killers giving insight on other killers' crimes. It's like they don't have good insight on themselves, much less anybody else, because they're so narcissistic. They're so psychopathic. They don't have that ability. They lie. In a sense, people say, do they lie to themselves? They don't. It's not that they believe that they're lies, but they do lie in just like justifying the things that they do. Anybody can do that. And is that a lie? To some extent it is. And do you believe your own lies? Well, you believe your justification because you want to. And if you actually said, what is your real, if you actually had to, if the person had that kind of insight to be able to stop them and say, hey, why for real? Sometimes they will admit they actually know the truth. But you can develop a game in your own head where you create for yourself a persona, and that's the persona you're going to pretend to be. People do it online all the time. They take on personas. That's why there's catfishing. That's why there's gaming where you get to play a certain character, and that's why there's acting. People like to be able to be a different persona than the person that they really are. And to be who you really are is to be willing to have people see who you really are. And sometimes they're not going to be that thrilled with you. And you may not be that thrilled with yourself. You're like, crap, But to have that kind of honesty and insight isn't something a high-level narcissist or psychopath will have. So, Marie, yes, that's almost amazing. But I think it's because they don't really understand their own psychopathic ways, that they don't see it on others because it's normal to them. That's a good point. Let me think about the normal issue. It's their view of the world. And sometimes their view isn't entirely wrong in the sense that, let's say they view as the world is unfair. To some extent it is. I had terrible parents. Maybe it did. My mother ignored me. Maybe she did. My father beat me. Maybe he did. But unless we have somebody else to say that's true, it may be you're lying. Yeah. But we all develop a view of the world that we then live with. And if we have a not so healthy view of the world, then we have issues that, we're obviously playing out that role in the place where we put ourselves. If we have a better view, we can play a different role, a positive role. We can say, having a family is wonderful. I'm going to play the role of being a mom or a dad. I'm going to play the role of a loving parent because I believe this is a good role to play. This is what I believe in. If we believe the world is bad and kids are a pain in the ass and my parents were shitty to me, okay, I'll be a parent, but those little buggers, they better do what I say. So I think it's a mystery of human nature is always going to be somewhat of a mystery to all of us, no matter what we say. And that's why the psychiatric community, changes up their books all the time. It has new theories, because we don't quite understand ourselves or anybody else, quite frankly. So we have to make up some kind of understanding stuff. What is that? Breaking news. Man on death row says the sky is blue. Oh my God, really? And we all amazed by that because how did he know? How did he know? That's sad, but true. So let me see if there was anything else I wanted to do before I say goodbye tonight. Let me just check because there's always something I leave out. Oh, I'll do okay. This is going to be my last one. It's on Quinton SImon. Because I was meant to do this last week, but this is this Quinton SImon. He's this cute little tot. Where is the cute little tot? Where is he? This little guy. Such a sad crime. Quinton SImon, too, was beaten to death with an object by his mother. This is his mother, Leilani SImon. She's 22. She was high on drugs before she dumped his body in a mobile home dumpster and then called 911 to report him missing. Lovely girl. All right. Now, the mother of 3 faces charges of malice murder, felony murder, concealment of death, and making false statements to the police. A grand jury indictment revealed she met with her drug dealer, and this is the important part to me, met with her drug dealer on October 4th and left her home the next day to dump his remains at a trailer park. So something happened after she got the drugs, whether she was on the drugs, whether she was with the drug dealer, who knows what happened there. And his remains were found finally on November 18th. She was arrested 3 days later. Now, the other thing that's important about this is that this is the grandmother, okay? This is the grandmother. This is happier days with grandmother. And doesn't she look like she loves her little grandbaby? Doesn't she? All right. Well, remember this story. This gets interesting. So after the child disappeared, let me find this here. Okay, wait a minute. I've got to get through the bottom of the story here. Okay. Leilani was spotted with Howell, that's the grandmother, her mother, at Stingray's, a beach bar near Tybee Island, drinking tequila about 2 weeks after Quinton went missing. DailyMail.com revealed that the two were at the bar downing Patron shots for 3 hours. Grandma's hanging out with mommy, drinking tequila, okay? 2 weeks after the kid is missing. Okay, prior to her arrest and following weeks of media scrutiny, she had checked herself into a treatment center. When she had informed her mother she was planning to check herself out of the program, it was Howell who made the decision to let the FBI know her daughter's next move. So this is where you start having a good feeling for Howell. Okay. Her mother had to make one of the hardest decisions of her life and call the FBI agents and let them know she was signing herself out. Then at the request of the FBI, she got Leilani from the treatment center and they spent a few hours with her. Then she took her daughter to the Savannah FBI office where she ultimately was arrested and charged with her son's murder. Okay. So she, at that point, knew her daughter was going to be charged. She comes off looking like she wanted to do the right thing. But she actually knew her daughter was going to be charged anyway. She wasn't doing anything miraculous. Here's the thing that really pisses me off. Before Quinton died, Leilani had lost child custody of Quinton for an unknown reason. I don't know how the hell that's unknown. Quinton was in Howell's custody before she went missing, but she was out of town when he disappeared. So let me get this straight. Your daughter has an alcohol problem and a severe drug problem. The little boy was removed from her custody because of the danger to him physically. You were given custody of that child because of the danger from the mother. But you just had to go out of town on whatever kind of trip you were on and dump the kid back with the mother who is not supposed to have custody. I think they should charge her with child neglect and whatever else they can charge her with. That to me is appalling. You are, Grandma, responsible for the death of your grandchild. And now she's out there crying, saying, oh, I didn't know that was going to happen. I've lost everything. Yeah, well, maybe you should have thought of that before you just dumped the kid with a dangerous person, which you knew was dangerous. Just, that one really pisses me off, and then you play the, oh, I didn't know routine. You didn't know. Where were you going that was so important that you couldn't, that you had to go, first of all, on this, whatever, where do you go? She was out of town. Out of town doing what? And wasn't there anybody else you could have left the child with other than the person he wasn't supposed to be with? Now it says this, got this one. Howell was also arrested Monday on contempt of court charges unrelated to Quinton's case. Unrelated. Contempt of court, unrelated. And is now in a suicide prevention watch. She claims she's lost everything. She was unrelated charges. What the hell else was she doing? Was she also a criminal? Unbelievable. This is what children get stuck with. Poor Quinton. I mean, rolled those snake eyes with mom and grandma. Even grandma didn't save him. It's sickening. Absolutely sickening. Anyway, that'll be it for today. I've gotten my last. I get upset when I see the system fail children and their relatives fail the children as well, especially when you have a chance to save them. Sometimes you can't save your relatives' children because you don't have the legal power to do so. But when you see a child being abused over and over again and you don't report that to social services, when you're given the chance to care for a child and you don't bother with it, yeah, I have problems. It just, it's just so sad and so frustrating. Okay, that's it for today. Those are all my thoughts for the week. Tomorrow, I am doing, because it's a holiday weekend, Christmas Eve and Christmas, Saturday and Sunday, I've decided to do a show, the case show tomorrow at 4 p.m. It is going to be, I just forgot his name. I got to pronounce his name right. Eitan Pates. Eitan Pates. That's the little boy who went missing years and years ago in New York City on the way to school. And like Johnny Gosh, he was like the child that this whole case freaked parents out. And that's when you began to realize that the world was not safe for your children to go walking around and that he could disappear in such a tiny little period of time. So I'm going to do that one tomorrow, 4:00 p.m. EST. It's a fascinating case, and we have confession issues in that case, which we talked about today. And also, there's actually 3 suspects in that case. And I don't think a lot of people know that. But I've just read a whole book on that, which is at Scribed. It's called After Eaton. And it's Eitan. Oh, sorry, I forgot how to pronounce his name again. Eitan. It's on Scribed, which is SCRIBD. And it's not you can also buy it on Amazon, but it's not being published anymore. So you have to get an old copy, and I didn't have time to wait for it. I found it there, which you had to pay a monthly fee to read books on that site. So, but I did read the whole book, and I didn't think it was a very good book, so I wouldn't waste your time. But I did learn things, and I've been studying this whole case, and there's 3 suspects, and it's very fascinating because they did finally convict somebody, but did they convict the right guy? And so it's a really interesting dilemma of 3 suspects, which in my opinion could have done it, but there was never enough really prove any of them did it. So fascinating case. You pronounce Eden. I've forgotten. I just read in the book. I'm going to have to go back and get it correct before tomorrow's show. Pates, I know, is like hates. That's what Daddy said. And then I think it's Eitan. It's a tricky one. It's really tricky. Well, I'll try to get it right before tomorrow. I'm not sure. Oh, wait a minute. I've heard that Quinton's grandmother has a long criminal history. Oh, really, Marion? Interesting. I wouldn't be surprised on that one. I wouldn't. But then, if she's got a long criminal history, why the heck is the court giving her custody? For God's sakes. Unbelievable. Just crazy. The Victoria murders. I have not heard about the Victoria murders. Interesting. I'll have to check that one out. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Whatever's left of your day. Didn't he start the milk carton? Yeah. I think I can't remember. I never can remember if it was Johnny Gosh who started it or Pates who started it. But both of those boys really shook everybody. to the point where you didn't think you were safe anymore, because there were both huge cases, and the bodies of neither boy have ever been found, which is one of the reasons it went on so long. And of course, Johnny Gosh, they never convicted anybody in his case. And in the Pates case, yes, 30 years later, they convicted somebody, but it's a little questionable there. Oh, I'm glad you're reading Only the Truth. Thank you. It's great. Oh, I like that. That book is very close to my heart. I just, it's my first fiction book, and I don't know. I love the characters in it, and I feel like when I wrote it, it's like their family now. So it becomes really personal. Strange thing with fiction. It's, fiction can become real to the writer, and hopefully to the people who read it. I'm glad you like it. Anybody else? It's listed below under the books. It's $2.99 at Amazon. So I'm going to put more fiction books up eventually, and they'll all be at $2.99 if I can keep it that way, so people can get a cheap read but a good read, and not have to go broke. In this day and age, we don't have a lot of money to spend, $19 on a book. So Kelly says, I see a lot of little kids. I see, for instance, the grocery store that I feel so bad for because of the parents they're with. Yeah, I do too. It's like you just wish you could go save everybody, but you can't. So luckily, you can at least do something in your own neck of the woods. Your own family, and if you see some child that is being abused, call social services. I mean, it should be something that's real. I mean, I know a lot of people freak out about stuff that's probably not necessary to freak out about. It's just life, that things aren't always perfect, but there are some times when something needs to be done, and people don't do it. So not that social services always fixes the problem, but you got to do something. So anyway, glad you came here, Kelly. Thank you very much. And we'll see some of you tomorrow at 4 p.m. I don't know how many people are available on a Friday, but for the rest of you who are doing the Christmas stuff, I didn't want to mess up your Christmas. And it's not really nice to do murder cases on Christmas. Just seemed kind of inappropriate. So I thought I'd do this historic case tomorrow instead. So hope I see you then. And again, if you're new to the channel, like and subscribe. Bye.